On January 20th this year, a new language model called DeepSeek came to the world. However, its release shocked the entire world, causing a turbulent US stock market in such a short period of time. Nearly $600 billion was wiped out from Nvidia, and the shares of Microsoft went down by 6%, then Google 4%, Nasdaq 3%. People said DeepSeek is a Chinese New Year gift to the world, but Donald Trump said,
"The release of DeepSeek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser focused on competing to."
So in today's video, I'm going to share my thoughts about DeepSeek, why it's so great, and some of my personal concerns like DeepSeek's impact on stock market. So let's get into it. First of all, you might be curious about the CEO behind DeepSeek. Who is this guy? What is his background? And what's special about him? Well, the entrepreneur is a Chinese guy who is called Liang Wenfeng, born in 1985 in Guangdong province. He was the #1 in Chinese Gaokao in 2002, and he was accepted by Zhejiang University, which is like Stanford in China. His teacher from middle school told the journalist that he showed great talents in math, and he even finished university level math in middle school. At the same time, he was not typical nerdy Chinese student, but many people actually don't know his great success as quant. His mutual fund, which is called 焕方量化or High Flyer, benefited nearly $140 million due to its great invest portfolio in 2008 financial crisis. At the same time, he was leading his team to research the potential of applying machine learning technique in automatic quantitative trading. He's been firmly believing that the great future of GenAI. So since 2018, his company's core strategy has been surrounding developing GenAI. And what he once told to China's media really impresses me. He said, "Those experienced will tell you to do this and that without hesitation. But those inexperienced have to seek a couple of times until they find a solution that fits them." And this is like what the name DeepSeek suggests. I know many people like DeepSeek for a couple of technical and practical reasons. For example, its performance is better than OpenAI's ChatGPT in many aspects, and DeepSeek is free. But I honestly think there's one factor far more important, and that's DeepSeek's being a real open source large language model. And let me explain why. First of all, as ChatGPT's user, I definitely love it, but in terms of the future development of GenAI as whole, there are actually some problems in it. If you think about it, OpenAI's ChatGPT is not open source because the model's architecture and training code are not available to the public. So we don't know what parameters are inside of the code along with the size of data set it uses. It feels like black box, but I'm not saying it's definitely a bad thing because closed source projects usually have a professional team dedicating to the company's roadmap, and at some extent, it might be walking towards more coherent direction. But if we think about what's going to happen in the long term, the story might be a bit different. An open source large language model has big advantage. There's usually a big community built around it, so people with expertise can make improvements like reporting bugs and suggesting features. For example, there is a Java-based logging utility which is called Logging4j. And in 2021, a big vulnerability was spotted by a Chinese employee working in Alibaba's cloud security team. But if this framework is closed source and only a few people can fix the bugs, it might still go unnoticed until its impact on business was too negative. It sounds pretty much like a Linus law claiming that given enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. Now, the benefits of being an open source large language model in the long term is easy to understand. So let's talk about something more interesting and technical. DeepSeek made a breakthrough because the model training is completely based on reasoning-oriented reinforcement learning without using supervised fine-tuning. And in supervised fine-tuning, you need to feed a pre-trained large language model with labeled data to get a fine-tuned large language model, guiding this model to generate some expected outputs. And in fact, ChatGPT is partly trained on this algorithm. For example, if you ask a large language model, "I lost my key," and you expect it to answer something like, "I'm sorry to hear it. There are some solutions to help, first of all, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, you may just generate, you just try to look around at your place. So in supervised fine-tuning, your objective is to make this answer get closer and closer to the expected answer. But reinforcement learning is very different. In this algorithm, we don't need to feed large language model with labeled data, but instead we motivate it to figure everything out by itself. And the motivation comes from getting rewards. If it walks one step towards the correct direction, you will get 1 point as reward, and vice versa. And DeepSeek's team adopted 2 types of rewards: accuracy rewards and format rewards. For example, mathematical problems usually have a deterministic results, and we don't give the correct final answers to train DeepSeek, and at the end of the day, if DeepSeek solved them in correct number and format, its rewards are maximized. So the entire process pivots to reasoning rather than chasing the correct answer. According to the paper released by DeepSeek, reinforcement learning has greatly improved the model's reasoning capability compared to OpenAI O1 models. My previous point is tightly related to the next one I want to share with you, which is chain of thought. In chain of thought, you can see how DeepSeek's reasoning process looks like. It literally makes it a more human-like GenAI. For example, once I asked it a question regarding some parameter in large language models, then I can see that it was talking to itself. DeepSeek was generating part of its thinking, but suddenly it said something like, oh wait, but maybe I should blah blah blah. And this is called aha moment in the paper. After that, it started to provide alternative solutions before it finally sorted out its thoughts and gave me the final output. Besides that, you can download some distilled model and run it in the local environment depending on which model you need and your GPU memory. A distilled model is like a small portion of DeepSeek which only serves a specific type of functions. For example, Q1 2.5 math model only solves mathematical problems. Also, you can reset some parameters like temperature to adjust the output. Lower temperature generates more deterministic results and is suitable for solving problems with deterministic answers like a mathematical equation, but you can also go for higher temperature if you ask it some open questions. Okay, you've know a lot about DeepSeek, but do you have any concern about it? We've been talking about its upside, but what about its downside? Well, first of all, although it outperforms ChatGPT in many aspects, ChatGPT still does a better job in other aspects. For example, in solving this physical problem, the GIF graph generated by ChatGPT is much more realistic than that from DeepSeek. And I think this is the aspect on which DeepSeek should improve. Also, sometimes I ask DeepSeek questions, it just shows me the server is busy. I think it's probably caused by a large number of users testing it in the same period of time. If that's the case, maybe we should access through API. And lastly, we know initially DeepSeek caused a tremendous impact on the stock market. Like nearly 600 billion US dollars evaporated from Nvidia, Nasdaq was down, blah blah blah. The chip maker Broadcom was down by 17.4%. Many people link it to the release of DeepSeek. I wouldn't agree with it, to be honest, but because its release was just a trigger, I think that was caused by the fact that US is overly financialized. We know since 1980s or 1990s, US started to deindustrialize itself, transferring many factories from its old territory to developing countries. I believe this policy was pretty, environmental friendly, but it made many workers unemployed, and then more and more people jumped into the financial industry chasing much higher profits. These years, we've heard many fancy concepts like a metaverse for so long. People made a very attractive presentation, investors poured money into it, pushing up the stock prices to so high, but at the end of the day, we didn't hear anything from it anymore. It just gone. I just want to say it's an indicator of US being overly focusing on finance and the stock market, but not real inventions. And that's why when something new and fancy appears, the stock market usually has a massive reaction. Okay, that's all for today. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye.